First over, very center, please. Almost there.
Take a little higher. You have to get another step.
Can you just move to the left now? Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Just because. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the funeral service. We ask for those that have a cell phone or pager and you're at the cemetery to please turn it to silent mode. We'll now have the members of the U.S. Air Force do the honor guard.
Ladies and gentlemen, please prepare for the rendering of military honors. You may be seated.
behalf of the President of the United States and the United States Air Force and the Grateful Nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of appreciation for your love and honorable, faithful service.
Welcome, and it's a humbling honor to be here to give a appropriate and dignified farewell to Dr. Bob Finberg. We're going to begin with page 195. Sorry, you don't. It's not page 1. It's 195 in my book. Psalm 16. We're going to begin with a couple of psalms, and then we'll hear some remarks from family and myself. Michtam leDavid Shamreini El ki chasisi vach Omart ladernai Adonai Ota. Tevasi balalacha. Likdaishim asher ba'aretz hema v'adire kol chefetzi bam yirbu atzvaisam acher moharu bal asich niskeim midam uval esa as shemoisam al safasai. Adonai menas chelki v'choisi atotem v'chgarali chavalim nafnu li baniimim af nachlas shafra aloi. Avarech es Adonai yeshaya atzani af leiles yisruni chil yoisai. Shivisi Adonai lenegdi tamed ki mimini bal emoit. Lachein samach libi v'yagol kavaydi af besari yishkan levetach ki lo tazev nafshi lish'oy lo sitin chasidcha lirois shachas to the eino erachayim soy vasamoches es panacha ne'imois v'mincha netzach. King David writes in Michtam, which is a form of psalm. King David says, "Watch over me, O God, for I have put my trust in you. You, my soul, have said to God, you are my master, you are not obligated to benefit me. For the sake of the holy ones who lie in the earth, and for the mighty, all my desires are fulfilled in their merit. Those who hasten after other gods, their sorrows shall increase. I will not offer their libations of blood, nor take their names upon my lips. The Lord is my allotted portion and my share. You guided my destiny. Portions have fallen to me in pleasant places. Indeed, a beautiful inheritance is mine. I bless the Lord who has advised me. Even in the nights, my intellect admonishes me. I have set the Lord before me at all times. Because he is at my right hand, I shall not falter. Therefore my heart rejoices and my soul exults. My flesh too rests secure. For you will not abandon my soul to the grave. You will not allow your pious ones to see purgatory. Make known to me the path of life, that I may be satiated with the joy of your presence, with the bliss of your right hand forever." I did not have the good fortune to know Bob or even to meet him. And therefore, unfortunately, I don't have personal memories to share. So I will ask those who do, we'll ask Abby to share something about her father. And Marnie is going to share something. Marnie and Abby are going to share something about their dad. And that I will also offer remarks that were offered to me by Rabbi Weinstock from Florida, who Bob got to study with for a number of years, and then a few thoughts of my own.
My father was remarkable. Remarkable in his kindness, remarkable in his loyalty, remarkable in his quiet strength and his faith. There was nothing inconsistent in his beliefs and how he lived his life. He believed in the examined life and living with meaning. For my father, this meant devotion to family, acts of kindness, helping others, and learning. He learned at Shul. He learned multiple instruments. He learned and mastered languages. He took classes at the community college in writing and art. He even took a series of classes about bugs at the local agriculture school. He was curious about the world. He was the younger of two. He grew up in Cleveland. He was a devoted son to his parents, Maurice and Hannah Finberg, and a devoted brother to his sister, Helene Feinsilber. He worked his way through college and medical school, often through manual labor and factory work. With pride, he showed me when he paid off his final loan. My dad had a brilliant mind. Whatever he studied, he grasped and remembered. Years after, his med school lab partner said that Dad was the reason he was able to graduate. After his medical training, he was drafted for Vietnam as a flight surgeon. He never talked much about the war, but over the years, stories would come out. He told us that he would trade his personal rations for supplies that would make his patients more comfortable. Extra planks beneath the sagging mattress of an injured man. My dad brought few things back from Vietnam, but he did buy a gold bracelet intended for a yet unmet beshert. My mother, Sharon Grossman Finberg, was that woman, introduced by his future sister-in-law at Shul in Memphis, Tennessee. My father was utterly devoted to my mom. Even in the final stages of his Alzheimer's, he would point to my mom and say, "That lovely one, she and me go together." He was an equally devoted and loving father to me, to my sister Marnie Siegel, and my brother Seth Finberg. My dad's job brought him to Florida, and he had an unbelievable work ethic. He was a compassionate and skilled internist and gastroenterologist. An old-fashioned doctor, he made house calls outside of the fee structure. He touched lives. Children of his former patients stayed in touch with him even after their parents passed. The respect and compassion my dad showed to his patients, he also showed to strangers. When I visited, we would go walking and he would stop to talk with a homeless woman and her middle-aged son. They knew my dad well. He gave money to all because he thoroughly believed that it was not for him to judge. If they are asking, then they are in need. My dad found joy in small things, a beautiful symphony, my mom's simple and hearty cooking, a good book. He quietly but consistently showed us how to live a meaningful, contented, loving, and honorable life. We will carry his goodness with us, and his memory and legacy will be a blessing to my mom, my brother Seth, my sister Marnie and her children, Leora and Jonah, and to me, my husband Josh, and our son Rafi. Thanks.
I'm not really sure how to follow that because, Abby, you did such an amazing job talking about Dad and how wonderful he was, and I couldn't have said it better, and I wouldn't want to. But it's funny, I think the differences here between us is illustrated. Abby was very much prepared, and I'm not, but I think that just speaks to, who you are and the work ethic that you got from Dad. So I just kind of have some memories and things to share about him. I don't know if any of you have watched the TV show The Good Place. And I think if he had been able to watch it, he would have really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, it came at a time where I don't think mentally, cognitively, he could have appreciated it. But one concept that resonated with me about that show is the idea of moral deserts and people doing things because they expect to be rewarded either in this life or in the afterlife. So kind of doing something good for a reason. And my dad couldn't have been further from that. He did good because he wanted to do good. He wanted to help people as much as he possibly could. He never looked for anything in return, never praise, never recognition. He didn't expect a thank you. It was because of something in him drove him to be this way. And I could spend my whole life trying to emulate him, and I could never come close because, as Abby said, he was just the most remarkable human being. And everyone says that, of course, about, their loved ones, but it's not an exaggeration. He was just, his brilliance. He could have a conversation about any topic under the sun: science, history, art, literature, music. He instilled in myself and my siblings a love of classical music and playing instruments and the joy of listening to symphonies and knowing the composers. And a piece would come on back when we had a local classical radio station before it, I guess, was defunded. And it wouldn't matter. I mean, he could just instantly know. Even if it was an obscure piece, not well known, he would know the composer. He would know the opus. He would know the movement. Oftentimes he would know, the conductor. It was incredible. He was so good, and some people did recognize that, outside, of course, of the family. I remember he did a lot of volunteering with the Boy Scouts of America just because he wanted to, and it made him happy to help people. And I do really remember there was one woman who gave him a copy of the book, The Giving Tree. And it was just so perfectly appropriate for who my dad was, because he would just give and give and give. Even if he had, nothing left to give, he would still give. He would still give more. So, might not be a happy thought perhaps, but it was just perfectly suited for who he was. And I'm glad that some people saw that as well. Just a few memories of the many that I treasure. As Abby said, I have a son and a daughter. They're almost 6 and almost 4. And one thing I like to do with them is take them to Dunkin' Donuts, and we get a chocolate glazed donut, and we split it in pieces. And at first I didn't really realize why I wanted to do that or why I started doing that. And then I kind of thought about it and realized that those are some of my earliest memories with my dad, is the three of us being in our car seats back in the 80s, back when I guess car seats probably were not required beyond infancy, and yet we were toddlers and older, and we were still in them because safety was important. And he would get a donut and divide it into 4 pieces, equal pieces. And so I guess he would take one piece, or maybe he saved it for someone else. I don't even know. I don't remember him eating it. But we would each get our quarter. And at the time, that just seemed like such an amazing amount of food. And it was so perfect. And it's something so simple makes you so happy. And I've told my kids that, Grandpa used to do this for us. And it's a really happy memory. And so, I wish they would have gotten to know him. But I think I want to do everything I can to help him live on. And that's, I see his mind, my daughter Leora, just sharp. The memory, I mean, she's remarkable. And I see his nature and his kindness, and my son Jonah, and just always wanting, the younger, always wanting to share his toys with the older. And if she's upset, he wants to comfort her. So I see my dad living on in them, and I would like to hopefully instill as many of his traits in them as I can. I remember when he would do the blessings every Shabbat, and how special that felt. Just this warm, wonderful feeling of being cared for and nurtured. I always wanted him to be proud of me. And I know that he was, but I'm not sure that he could have been as proud of us as we were of him, because that's the person that he was. And one thing that I did that I do think made him very proud was he had been inducted into Phi Beta Kappa back in the, I guess, the early 60s. I don't even know exactly the year, at Ohio State University. And he was very proud of that. He wasn't someone who was prideful or would talk about his accomplishments, but I remember him showing me he had kept his original letter and certificate from his induction, and he got in a time when it was not easy to get in. You had to do any number of recommendations and special things. It wasn't just like, oh, okay, you get the GPA and you're in, which is kind of how it was for me. But I got into Phi Beta Kappa at Florida State University, Alpha Chapter of Florida. And I knew I wanted to do it because of how special that was to my dad. And he flew up to Tallahassee, little tiny, dinky little airport, flew up to Tallahassee for the ceremony because he was just so pleased and honored that I was able to carry on that tradition. So that's something that's very special to me. But I could speak for 10 hours and I probably wouldn't run out of things to say about him. And I'm rambling right now, but I would like to live my life and emulate him the best way that I can, which is to be always wanting to learn, always caring for other people, always doing the right thing without thinking about how it affects me, but because it is the right thing, because it is virtue for virtue's sake. And he was very proud of all of his accomplishments in the sense that they brought him joy, but he wasn't proud for the sense of, I did this or I did that. He wouldn't talk about them most of the time, but I know being in the military was very important to him. Being a helper was very important to him. And being a father and a husband and a family member and a friend. So thank you for listening to my rambling. And then my mom wanted to say a few words as well.
It is probably not appropriate for a wife to speak, but that's never been my goal. My daughter wanted me to prepare something so that I wouldn't say anything that I shouldn't, and I tried, but I guess Marnie is like me. I was not able to put anything to words on paper. Which is the same reason that I don't like baking, because you have to follow a recipe. My husband was 1 in a million, and that was probably when there were 50 million people. No, when there, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? He is a rare person. And sometimes I think that, well, Boy Scouts were important to him. My son became an Eagle Scout in the days when it was still an honorable profession. And he was very proud of that. He lived his life with a moral compass, and it was always pointing in the right direction. He didn't care what others did. It didn't matter to him, because he knew the right way to be, and that's really how he wanted to lead his life. I also think that a song would be appropriate, which is I Did It My Way. And that's going back to the fact that he knew what was right, and that's what he did. He didn't care. I could give you a couple of examples if I can remember them. I don't know, I feel like I'm speaking into a microphone, or looking into a microphone. Nobody can hear me? Maybe that's for the...
We hear you.
Oh, okay. When we were first married, Bob said to me, and I don't know, we were having some sort of work done, that whenever you go into a contract with someone, both sides should walk away feeling good. And that's what he did in everything. And, you know, he wasn't a Pollyanna. He knew what the world was, but he didn't care. He did what was right. In fact, one time we were having some sort of house painting done, and the people gave us a contract, and they said it would take X number of days, and so that's what we paid them. Turned out it took about another 3 days, and without asking, Bob gave them the daily rate. And I said, Bob, they didn't even ask you. He said, Sharon, I'm not going to allow somebody to do work for me and have them end up losing money in the process. Somebody once said to me, "Oh, does Bob use the VA system?" Well, he had once worked at the VA system, but I asked him, and he said no, because my friends said, well, people who are richer than us use the VA. They don't have a problem. And Bob said, "Sharon, I can afford my own insurance. Let it be for people who can't." And that's pretty much the approach he took to everything he did in life. And I'm just starting to, I'm sorry, Marnie, I'm using your words. I'm starting to ramble. Another thing that I remember, I used to joke with him that if he were Catholic, he would have nothing to say at confession. And that's pretty much true, and I understand enough about Judaism to know that we all ask for forgiveness, particularly on Yom Kippur. And when I'd go through them in my mind, I couldn't think of anything. I don't even think he was capable of a bad thought, let alone to put something into place. He was a quiet man. One time when years ago, we were at some sort of a speech. I don't know if it was from the synagogue or Jewish Federation or whatever it was. And the man reported, as if it were his own history, something that was happening in Israel. And when we got out, Bob said, that thing was straight from the New Republic, which is another magazine. I said, "Bob, why didn't you say something?" He said, "Sharon, why would I do that?" That, he didn't need to show anybody how smart he was. He never put anybody down. He never criticized. He never condemned. He accepted me for who I am. He didn't really try to change me. And I remember when he would have a book, and his things were always nice and orderly and taken well care of. And I was reading one of his books, and I was drinking coffee, and and he didn't yell. He didn't try to correct me. And I think eventually it was much easier for him to be more like me than to try to change me. Anyways, another thing, and I'm not making light of this, I either laugh or I cry. One of the people who, he was actually the accountant for the group, the medical group my husband was in, and we still use him, and we're friends. And he loved telling me the story about how when they were at a meeting from Internal Medicine Associates, he was sitting there talking, and all of a sudden he got a nosebleed. And all of the other people in the group kind of like sat. I don't know if they didn't notice. I don't know if they didn't know what to do. Bob ran up, took out his handkerchief, took him in another room, and sat with him until the nosebleed stopped. That was Bob. I know that I used to tell my mother that she was very blessed because she had Robert for a son-in-law. And he was patient and loving and tolerant of everybody. And that's all. I mean, quiet, good, decent, honorable, ethical, wonderful, and unassuming. May everybody know that he was some man.
I'm pretty confident that it would not do justice for me to insert anything of my own. And, oftentimes one of the things rabbis like to do is learn from the deceased. And I think that just listening to Abby and Marnie and Sharon, I've learned, I'm thinking about the things that I need to improve on. So thank you. But I want to share from Rabbi Yosef Weinstock, Bob's rabbi for a number of years. I think he was just assuming he was associate rabbi and then became the senior rabbi. He shared this, and I'm going to read it. So these are his words. The Talmud teaches, Rabbi Yochanan said, wherever you find the greatness of the Holy One, blessed be He, there you find His humility. This lesson is especially important in our current era of social media. God is not always flashy. Often his greatness is found in his ability to show humility. This is the lesson that stands out when I think about Bob Finberg. When I first arrived in Hollywood, Bob was an early student of mine, religiously attending my Monday evening class on the Torah portion. At that time, Bob taught me you don't have to let everyone know that you're the smartest person in the room. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be the most caring. Qualities such as integrity, honesty, and sensitivity are not measured in decibels. They are found quite often in humble people. Bob was such a person. Bob was soft-spoken, kind, and considerate. He was a proud and devoted Jew. He was thoughtful in both senses of the word. In my classes, I would quote the commentary of Nachmanides. As soon as a new edition of that commentary with English translation was published, Bob bought it for me. Whenever I use those books, I will think of Bob Finberg and take a moment to be grateful that I had the chance to know him and to learn from him. Bob epitomized the verse in Micah 6:8. "O man, what is good and what the Lord demands of you? But to do justice, to love loving kindness, and to walk discreetly with your God." I know that even in death, Bob continues to walk discreetly and humbly with God. The world would be a much kinder and better place if we all acted a little more like Bob Finberg. May his family be comforted by their memories and legacy that he leaves behind, and may his memory always be a blessing. I will mention that Rabbi Weinstock mentioned to me that that when Bob was in Vietnam, he was very careful to only eat kosher and refused. He survived on tuna fish, and the non-Jewish chaplain gave him a Kiddush cup that he treasured all his years. And he was. I was just listening to him talk about Bob and hearing today is a great inspiration, as our sages tell us that Jacob didn't die. Well, he did die. The Torah says he died. So they say, well, he died. He was alive because his children lived on. Children, not just physical descendants, but the Jewish people that continued in the way of Jacob. And in that sense, when Bob's family, his children and grandchildren continue his legacy and his sort of way of living, without a doubt, he lives on in his children and his descendants. I'm not sure how he feels about the cold today. I'm just saying, coming from Florida. We're going to do the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim Shoichen Meravoimim Hamtze Menuchonechoinu Al Kamfei Ashechino B'maloi Sakedoishiyim Utoirim Kizoyer Arkia Mazirim Es Nishmas Rachmi Al Pesach Ben Mordechai Sholach Li Oilamoi Babushenot Woodstock Biad as Koros Nishmosoi Bigan Eden Te Menuchosoi Lochein Bal Rachamim Yastireu B'Seiser Knafav Li'Olamim V'Yitzroir B'Yitzroir Achaim Es Nishmosoi Adonai Yonachalosoi V'Yonuach Al Mishkovoi B'Shalom V'Noimar Amen. The greatest mitzvah, the greatest kindness we can do for someone is a kindness that they can't repay, because then we're doing it without any ulterior motive. And our sages teach us that chesed shalem, as true kindness, is when we bring someone to a final resting place honorably and appropriately. And so now we will conduct the burial part of the service. We ask family to offer their forgiveness and to Bob for anything they may have done that was a little untoward. And can you turn it on? And then we will okay. There will be opportunities to the barrel in the sense that we put earth in the grave, as the Torah tells us, from earth we come and to earth do we return. Yeah, I'm not sure what time do we say the mincha will be. 4 o'clock. Yeah. There will be a mincha tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the Chabad House, 5700 South Woodlawn in Chicago, in Hyde Park. Tomorrow. We're gonna put it. Would you like to put a little earth on, and then I'll close the vault, and then we'll fill the rest. It'll be. One of the blessing that we make when someone passes is, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who is the true judge." And we declare God's justice being true. We don't understand why things happen that are painful, and but our faith tells us that God is the true judge of who shall live and who shall die, and so on. So, as we fill the grave, I'm going to read a few passages called Siduk Hadin, which is affirming the righteousness of God's justice. But if anybody wants to add more dirt, this is an opportunity to put more, especially those who haven't had a chance, we'd like to. Hatzur tamim pa'alai ki chol derachav mishpat, eile munah ve'ein avel tzadik v'yashar hu. Hatzur tamim b'chol pa'al miyem le matif al-ashalat v'matav v'mal meis v'mchayim merit shel v'yah. Hatzur tamim b'chol maseh miyem le matase ha'emer v'oiseh chesed chinen lo natase v'schus ha'neket keseh kshiva v'aseh. Tzadik b'chol derachav hatzur tamim erech ha'payim mal erachmim chamelna v'chusna alav v'sebanim ki l'cha aden aslichus v'arachamim. Tzadikato adinoi lahamis alahachios asher b'yodcha pikto in kol ruchas chalil l'chazir chanina limchais v'yiyana inecha v'rachamim aleinu pekuchais ki l'cha aden rachamim v'aslichais. Under ben shana yiyah ay elef shana michya ma yishin le'kalai haya yiyah barach dayin ha'emes memes v'chaya. Barach huki emes dina m'shoit l'kol v'yeina m'shalom la'adam cheshboina v'dina akol l'shmei hidayi yitena. V'danu adinoi ki tzadik mishpatacha tizdak v'davracha v'tizka v'shavtacha v'in lahar racham v'dishpatacha tzadika adinoi v'yashim mishpatacha. Dayan emes shefet tzadik v'emes barach dayan emes shkol mishpata v'tzadik v'emes nefesh kol chai b'yadacha tzadik malon yeminacha v'yadacha rachim apletzat tzin yadacha v'temel malach heref yadacha v'doyla eitza v'rabba aliyah she'enecha v'kuchas ekol derech b'nei adam basis ish kedracha v'chrin ma'alalav v'hagel kiyasha adonai tziri v'lai v'lasaboy adonai nasan v'adonai lakach yishem adonai v'veirach your eyes are watching all the ways of man to give man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his deeds. That is to say that the Lord is just. He is my strength. There is no injustice in him. The Lord has given and the Lord has taken. May the name of the Lord be blessed. I'm going to read Psalm 49 in English, which will be followed in a few moments by the mourner's Kaddish. For the conductor by the sons of Korach is psalm. Hear this, all you peoples. Listen, all you inhabitants of the world, sons of common folk and sons of nobility, rich and poor alike. My mouth speaks wisdom, and the thoughts of my heart are understanding. I incline my ear to the parable. I will unravel my riddle upon the harp. Why am I afraid in times of trouble? Because the sins I trod upon surrounded me. There are those who rely on their wealth, who boast of their great riches. Yet a man cannot redeem his brother nor pay his ransom to God. The redemption of their soul is too costly and forever unattainable. Can one live forever, never to see the grave? Though he sees that wise men die, that the fool and the senseless both perish, leaving their wealth to others, nevertheless, in their inner thoughts, their houses will last forever, their dwellings for generation after generation. They have proclaimed their names throughout the land. But man will not repose in glory. He is likened to the silenced animals. This is their way, their folly remains with them, and their descendants approve of their talk, Selah. Like sheep, they are destined for the grave. Death shall be their shepherd, and the upright will dominate them at the morning. Their form will rot in the grave, away from its abode. But God will redeem my soul from the hands of the grave, for he will take me, Selah. Do not fear when a man grows rich, when the glory of his house is increased, for when he dies, he will take nothing. His glory will not descend after him. For he alone praises himself in his lifetime, but all will praise you if you better yourself. He will come to the generation of his forefathers. He shall not see light for all eternity. Man can live in glory but does not understand. He is likened to the silenced animals.
So we'll do this one once we leave, okay? We'll do it once we leave. Okay? No, it's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
I'm going to read it. Okay. Iskadal, v'iskadash, shmei Rabba. Yalmad divra chirusei, yamlich malchusei. V'chayechayin, v'yamechayin, v'chayei dechol beis Yisrael. Bagala, v'zman kariv, v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba v'varach, v'yalam v'yalmei olmaya. Yisbarach, v'yishtabach, Yisba'ar, Yisramam, Yisnasei, Yishadar, Yis'aleh, Yishalal, Shmei Ikudsha, Brichu, Le'ela, Minkal, Birchasa, V'shirasa, Tush B'chasa, V'nechamasa, Da'amiran, Ve'alma, Ve'imru, Amen. Yehei Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu, V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the funeral service here. We asked our friends and extended family here that are here if we could form an aisleway so the immediate mourners could walk through them and we could offer them through traditional words of condolences. So if we could form an aisleway right here.
I want to just thank everyone who made an extra effort to come out today. And especially in this weather and so on. Okay, so I'm going to say, everyone could repeat after me the traditional blessing we give to mourners that they be comforted. Hamakom, Yenachem, Etchen, B'tchitoch, Sha'ar, Avelei, Tzion, Yerushalayim. May God Almighty comfort you among those who mourn the destruction of Zion and Jerusalem. This is the conclusion of the sermon.